Hi, I'm John Fitzgerald and welcome to Custodian TV. And a further welcome to a brand new financial new year, and this marks a watershed in Australian history. A watershed because we've committed now to spend $139 billion on capital works in Australia. That's private commitment. This is a record. We've never seen this in Australia before, plus nearly another $10 billion in public works. Now, if I look at that into perspective, between 2000 and 2010, we spent around about, on average, $20 billion a year. Some years as little as $10 billion, some as much as $29 billion, until the mining boom took hold. Now we're spending, this year, $139 billion. And that's why the Reserve Bank, and particularly Glenn Stevens, says we're going to have unemployment at 4.9%, going down to 4.2% by 2013. But he also came out just in June. I want to read an excerpt. He said that the degree of slack in the economy overall does not seem large in comparison with the apparent rise of the expansion in the resource sector income and investment now underway. This is enormous. And last year, let's just look at last financial year. The mining sector employment grew by 19%. That is phenomenal. And their wage growth, the mining sector wage growth, is 8.5% per annum. And that's why, yes, we have a two-speed economy, but it's becoming a one-speed economy because 19% growth in that workforce, and that's pulling up other areas of the economy as well, because last year as well, the second biggest growth area was finance, and the finance sector grew by 10%. That is, the number of jobs in that sector grew by 10%. So we have this disparity, 8.5% wage growth, and then others on 3.5% to 4%, averaging out to nearly 6% wage growth, but becoming that one-speed economy. And now we have the biggest amount of capital expenditure in one financial year than we've ever seen in the history of Australia, all on the back of China. And I've spoken about China before, but the numbers are just so compelling and so phenomenal, it's worth repeating. China are building 30 million new homes a year. 30 million. And they're committed to do that for the next 5 to 10 years. 150 million homes they're going to build in the next 5 years. Now, let me put that in perspective in Australia. In Australia, we have in total around 7 or 8 million homes, maybe 8 million homes. So they're building nearly 4 times for Australia's per annum. And it's taken us, what, 100 plus years? And they're building 4 Australias per annum. 3,750 high-rise buildings they're building each year. We don't have that many in Australia. It's enormous. And it's so enormous, it was what I suppose sparked Jacques Nasser, the chairman of BHP, to come out and say just recently, this is a change in the history of the world that's bigger than the Industrial Revolution was 200 years ago. Get a part of it. It really is absolutely amazing. I'm forecasting we're going to have the biggest boom in Australian history. It's just too obvious. Look at it. Let's go back to the last boom. We had unemployment at 6.5%. Today it's 4.9%, due to hit 4.2%. And people say, no, that's really conservative. It could go as low as 3.9%. We haven't seen that since 1974. You haven't seen unemployment below about 4.5% since the 1970s. So not in my working lifetime. When we had the last boom, and the last boom, let me tell you, 2000 to 2004, East Coast doubled in value. Unemployment was 6.5%. We had an oversupply of housing, 3,200 homes. Today we have a shortage of over 204,000 homes, rising to nearly 250,000 homes in the next 4 or 5 years, according to the National Housing Supply Council. But the big one, the real big one, was the last boom. We had net migration at 107,000. Today, per annum, today we have migration running at somewhere between 250 and 350,000, and we need that for the amount of jobs that are being created. It's really all about jobs in a mining boom. We have two things colliding, stars colliding. Our baby boom is retiring. That's 25% of our workforce. At the same time, China is erupting and it's giving us the biggest mining boom in Australian history. Put that together and you're going to have the biggest real estate boom in Australian history, and you're going to see it start very, very soon. The only thing stopping it now is consumer sentiment and banking and finance. And on those 2 points, consumer sentiment can turn around very quickly. Banking and finance, we see certainly lots of the banks coming out now, changing their policies, getting more liberal with funds, wanting to lend money, particularly on housing. The numbers on population are really compelling, but let me give you the base argument on it, or I should say the base study on it. Between 2000 and 2010, Australia created 2,070,000 new jobs. 88% of those jobs were filled by foreign migration. 88%. Only 12% filled internally. Why is that? Because we've got as many people leaving the workforce as entering it. Between 2010 and 2020, if we have the same amount of job growth, percentage-wise, we'll create 2.55 million new jobs. But not one of them can be filled internally because we have more people leaving the workforce than entering the workforce. So we have to import at least 250,000 skilled migrants per annum. And that was what the budget was about this year. The numbers Wayne Swan announced: 180,000 skilled migrants, plus 46,000 sponsored migration, plus 16,000 regional migration, plus maybe 120,000 student visas. They can work 20 hours a week. And the big one, though, was changes to the 457 visa, the temporary 4-year work visa, which they can allocate up to 220,000 of those. And when I ask demographers, what is the net number? They say it's very hard to get that estimate, somewhere between 250 and 350,000. 5,000 to 7,000 people a week coming in to this country. And that needs to be conservative, because if we just have the same amount of job growth the last 10 years as the next 10 years, that's conservatively what we need. Skilled Australia is saying it could be much higher and will be much higher than that. I just want to go back a step and talk a little bit about the employment and employment growth, because it really is phenomenal. We're spending $139 billion this year, but that's just the start of it. There's another $175 billion on the drawing board at advanced stages. Phenomenal. These are phenomenal numbers. This isn't expected, the mining boom's not expected to peak until 2014, 2015. How can you get a part of it? Well, we're in the housing business, and success is just really one thing: repetition. So work a way to get yourself that duplication, get yourself that repetition, because if we do have the biggest mining boom in Australian history and the biggest real estate boom in Australian history, you'll see house prices go up by $200,000, $300,000, even $400,000 within the next few years. I really would encourage you, get excited about this, speak to your consultant, work with Custodian. I'm excited about it. You'll be amazed the difference it'll make in your life in the next 4 or 5 years. Thank you for listening to me.